She brought forth twins, alone, in the heart of a scorching wilderness. No shelter overhead, no soul beside her. Only the merciless sun, the parched breeze, and the hush of desolation. Mirabelle June Carver. She was barely 23. Her father, he'd vowed to guide her to a secure haven, a place where she could birth her children in tranquility. Her brother, he'd even grinned, assuring her, all will be well. But when their cart reached the brink of the barren expanse, oh, they told her to step off. And when she did, they seized the reins and galloped off without a backward glance. At first she thought it was a mistake. Surely they'd return for her. Surely. Perhaps they were testing her resolve. But as the sound of hooves dissolved and all she heard was the distant wail of jackals, she faced the truth. Her kin had forsaken her. To them, she wasn't a daughter, not a sister, not even a person. She was a blemish, a mark they sought to wipe away. The shock, it struck her like a blade. She sank to her knees, clutching her rounded belly, praying. It was a cruel dream. But the ordeal, it was only beginning. Her water broke, right there, on the dust. The pain surged, like flames ripping through her with no reprieve. She cried out, but no one responded, not even the heavens. Hours dragged on in torment. The ground beneath her dress, it stained crimson. She clawed the earth with shaking hands, desperate to cling to life. When the first child emerged, she nearly collapsed, but that faint wail, it drew her back. She severed the cord with a jagged stone found in the dirt. Her body trembled, her lips cracked, but there was no pause. The second baby was coming. She bit her sleeve to stifle her screams. Blood streamed down her legs. The world, it blurred into heat and stillness. But then she heard it, another feeble cry. She gathered both infants to her chest, pressing their tiny faces close. They lived, but for how long? Mirabelle scanned the horizon. It stretched endlessly, dotted with nothing but sagebrush and rock. The sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the dunes. The breeze carried the scent of dust and decay. Her body was shattered, her strength ebbing, but her arms, they tightened around the newborns. If she perished, they would too, and she vowed that would not happen. She tried to rise, but fell again. The bruises on her legs and arms pulsed with every breath. Her tattered dress stuck to her skin, soaked with sweat and blood. One eye, swollen shut from a beating she'd endured days before. Her body was wrecked, yet one fragile thread held her fast. The will of a mother, she murmured to the children through parched lips. You will survive, even if I do not. Her tears mingled with blood as the desert night crept nearer. Jackals howled again, closer now. Her heart pounded with dread. She knew the beasts would come soon, alone, defenseless and bleeding. All she had were 2 tiny lives pressed against her heart. The last light faded and stars flickered above. Her breaths grew faint, her vision dimmed, but still she held the babies close, rocking them softly, humming a lullaby her mother once sang. Her voice broke, but the babies stirred, their cries faint in the dark. It was a sound both beautiful and terrifying. Beautiful because they lived, terrifying because it might lure predators nearer. Somewhere in that vast silence, Mirabelle closed her eyes and asked the only question left. Would anyone find them before the desert finished what her family had begun? Her legs shook, her bare feet sliced by rock and thorns. But Mirabelle kept walking, clutching the newborns to her chest. Every step left a trail of blood in the dust. She knew she'd collapse soon. Yet she pressed on, whispering to the babies with each breath, "Just a little further, stay with me." That was when she saw him, a lone drifter, emerging slowly from the fading light. Hat tilted low, scarf glue against the pale dusk, his horse restless at the scent of blood, ears twitching. But the man, he steadied it. He studied the girl for a long moment. A frail young mother, face bruised, dress ripped, carrying two crying infants like the weight of the world. Jonah Creed. He'd seen suffering before, but never a sight that seared him like this. She was walking toward death, yet she would not release the babies. He urged his horse closer. "Keep going like that, you'll fall," he said plainly. Her lips moved, dry and cracked. "Then let me fall, but not them." Something in those words, it gripped him, deeper than any duty ever had. Without hesitation, he dismounted, reached for her arm, and steadied her. She nearly collapsed against him, still clutching the children. Jonah felt how light she was, how close to the edge. There was no time for questions, no time to ponder if helping her would bring trouble. He lifted her into the saddle, settled the twins against his coat, and swung up behind. The horse shifted, then started north under his hand, toward the only place he could take them, his homestead, a quiet stretch of land at the base of the mountains, where he'd lived a solitary life. The ride was slow, guided by stars and a sliver of moon. The babies whimpered, the mother whispered, and Jonah kept his eyes sharp for jackals. When they reached the small cabin, he carried them inside. It was no grand estate, just rough wooden walls, a stone fireplace, and the scent of leather in the barn. But it was safe, and it was his. He laid the babies in a cradle he'd built years ago, never used. He gave Mirabelle water, draped a blanket over her, and for the first time in years Jonah felt his solitude crack. "You're safe here," he said. She nodded weakly, holding the babies close. What Jonah didn't know was that this night it would tie them together, and soon Mirabelle would plead for something even harder, to help her find the man who'd abandoned her, the father of her twins. Mirabelle stayed at the homestead for weeks, her body mending slowly. Her bruises faded one by one, though the wounds within, they cut deeper. Jonah said little, but his actions, they spoke louder. He drew water, cooked stew and bread, and every night he rocked the twins when she was too weary to stand. The cabin, once silent, now hummed with the cries of babies and the sound of life returning. But some wounds don't heal with time. Every evening Mirabelle's gaze drifted past the mountains. She still thought of Diego, the man who'd once whispered vows beneath the mesquite trees, the father of her children, the man she still hoped might be searching for her. One night by the fire she finally spoke. "Please, help me find him." Jonah didn't answer right away. He knew that look in her eyes, hope tangled with despair. He'd carried that look once himself, chasing someone who never turned back. But he couldn't refuse her, so he nodded. The journey was long and harsh. They passed through sandstorms, jagged ravines, and towns where strangers judged with hard eyes. Mirabelle held her babies close, singing lullabies when the nights grew too long. Jonah rode steady beside her, vigilant, though his silence grew heavier the closer they came to the frontier. And then, one afternoon, they found him, Diego. He was leaning against a tavern post, laughing with men who reeked of whiskey and smoke. His hair was longer, his clothes finer, his smile wide. But when his eyes met Mirabelle's, that smile froze. She stepped forward, heart racing. "Diego, these are your children." For a moment, the world seemed to pause. The twins whimpered in her arms, their tiny fists curling. Diego looked at them, then at her, and laughed. "Those aren't mine. I owe you nothing." The words, they cut deeper than any knife. Mirabelle's knees buckled, and only Jonah's hand kept her upright. Diego turned back to his friends, dismissing her as if she were mere dust on his boots. The man she'd held in her heart was gone, replaced by a coward who feared duty more than death.
Jonah's jaw clenched. He wanted to strike him then and there, but he held back. This wasn't the place, not yet. What happened in the tavern was only the spark. Soon fists would fly, blood would spill, and Mirabelle would see who truly stood by her. If you're still listening and want to hear how this tale turns from heartbreak to fire, stay tuned for the next chapter, because the next part, it's where everything shifts. The man who abandoned her won't walk away unchallenged. Diego's laugh still echoed when Jonah stepped forward. He'd held his tongue long enough. The way Diego looked at Mirabelle, like she was nothing but a burden, it was more than he could bear. Diego turned, smirking. "What now, old man? You want to play hero?" The men around him chuckled, waiting for a spectacle. But Jonah, he didn't answer with words. His fist spoke first. The punch cracked across Diego's jaw, sending him stumbling into the dirt. The crowd roared. Diego spat blood, eyes blazing, and lunged. The two men collided, fists swinging, boots kicking up dust. Mirabelle clutched the babies tight, her heart pounding, torn between fear and a strange rising hope. Diego swung wildly, but Jonah fought steady. Years of ranch work and trail fights had made him strong in ways Diego couldn't match. Diego landed a blow to Jonah's ribs, and the older man grunted, but didn't fall. He came back with a heavy right hand that dropped Diego to his knees. The tavern door swung open. Onlookers spilled out, circling, shouting bets, egging them on. Diego scrambled up, reaching for the pistol at his belt. Gasps rippled through the crowd, but Jonah's boot came down hard, kicking the weapon into the dust. He said, "No guns, fight like a man." They traded blows, blood and sweat mixing with dirt. Diego's pride kept him standing longer than his body could endure. But Jonah's patience, his grit, it wore him down. Finally, Diego sagged against the post, chest heaving, eyes wild with hate. He grabbed him by the collar and hissed low, "You threw away a woman who would have walked through fire for you. You don't deserve her, and you'll never deserve them." He let go, and Diego crumpled to the ground. The crowd fell silent. Even the rowdiest gambler knew who the better man was. Mirabel's eyes filled with tears, not of sorrow this time, but of truth. The man she had once loved, he was gone. The man standing before her now, bloodied but unyielding, he'd done more for her and her children than Diego ever would.
Diego crawled away, clutching his pride like a wound. No one stopped him, no one cared. All eyes were on Jonah, standing tall in the fading light. But this wasn't the end, because the hardest choice still lay ahead. Would Mirabel find the courage to let go of the past and open her heart to the man who had saved her? The dust settled. Diego was gone, his pride shattered, his shadow fading into the dark. Mirabel stood, holding her babies, watching Jonah wipe the blood from his cheek. For the first time in a long while, she felt no fear, only a strange calm, like the storm inside her had finally passed. They left that town before dawn. The trail was quiet, the sky painted with soft light, and the twins slept in her arms. Mirabel looked at Jonah as he guided the horse, steady. This man had fought for her, not with promises, but with his hands, his heart. She whispered, "Thank you." And though his answer was only a nod, its weight spoke volumes. Back at the homestead, days turned into weeks. Mirabel found herself cooking over the fire, hanging clothes on the line, laughing softly when the babies found their voices. Jonah mended fences, hauled water. Each night he sat on the porch, rocking one of the twins, while Mirabel held the other. The silence that once haunted the homestead, it now carried the sound of family. One evening, the sun sank low, setting the mountains ablaze with gold. Mirabel turned to Jonah. She told him the truth she'd kept buried. Diego was gone, and she no longer wanted him. What she wanted was here, with the man who had carried her through hell and back. Jonah looked at her for a long moment, then at the children sleeping in the cradle. His rough hands trembled as he reached for hers. He said quietly, "I'm no savior, but if you'll have me, I'll stand by you." Mirabel's eyes filled, and for the first time since her betrayal, she smiled without pain. That night, the homestead was no longer a place of refuge. It was a home, built not on blood ties, but on choice, sacrifice, and love earned through fire. And here's the question for you. What makes a true family? Is it blood alone, or is it the people who choose to stay when everyone else walks away? If this story stirred something in you, keep following for more tales of the frontier, stories of grit, betrayal, and the kind of love that endures the harshest trials. Because in the end, this isn't just Mirabel's story. It's a reminder for us all. No matter how broken the past, there's always a chance to start anew. And sometimes, the family we forge on the trail, it's stronger than the one we were born into.